New Thought Media Network proudly presents a weekly exploration of various spiritual practices with renowned spiritual authors, coaches, teachers, and Dr. Tracy Brown, RScP.
And now, here's Tracy.
Hey everybody, Tuesday, noon Mountain Time. That means I'm supposed to be at Poetry, Prayer, and Practices with you. And here we are. So I'm so glad that you've decided to join in today. And I'm so glad to be here. Now, if you've been following along with us, you already know this, but just in case this is your first time being exposed to Poetry, Prayer, and Practice, every week on Tuesdays, we come together and we talk about poetry as a spiritual practice, or poetry and how it can guide us into spiritual practice or support our understanding of spiritual principle. Poetry, prayer, that basic, that foundation of integrating spiritual principles into the way that you live. So we do have quite a few conversations related to prayer and practice. Everybody has these ideas that spiritual practice is so difficult, or it takes so much time. And a lot of the spiritual practices that we focus on are really, how do you integrate? What are little things you can do, or what are customized ways that you can integrate spiritual practice into your life? And so I'm glad that Shay has joined us. If you are live, or even if you're not, feel free to put your greeting in the chat so others will know that you are here. And throughout this time today, feel free to share comments, or ask questions, or share your own insights in the chat or in the comment section, depending on which platform you are on. So today, if you've been also following along with us, then you may have been expecting Tracy to be having a conversation with Reverend Cliff Rubin. He was my scheduled guest for today, and he's having a little bit of a health challenge, and so we are going to reschedule our time together. And what's really funny is the first thing that I thought about was, well, if I can't talk to Cliff, maybe there's some insight in his book that I love, which is Reverend Cliff's Notes on the Science of Mind textbook. And it's a really fabulous way to take a deep dive into the Science of Mind textbook. And I thought, oh, that would be great. It would be almost like having Cliff here. I can just read what he said about different parts of the textbook. But I decided that I would much rather dive more deeply into spiritual principle with him. So watch the schedule, and we'll get him back on the schedule in a couple of months. So instead, I want to do a variety of things. One, I'm curious from you, like we haven't done a show where we just answered questions you may have, or things you would like to hear spiritual principle, or get some ideas about spiritual practices. And so that's definitely an option. If you have a specific spiritual topic or question that you'd like me to respond to, I can weave that in. But I'm going to start in with some Iyanla Van Zandt today. And so, yeah, Shay, I agree with you that when Cliff put the book out, I think it was 2014-ish, almost 10 years ago. And I was like, Cliff's Notes. Oh yeah, Cliff's Notes. Cliff's Notes on the Science of Mind textbook. So it was very clever, really very clever thing. And the book itself does provide what we think of as Cliff Notes in the other sense to really understand and go deeper in the principles and the practices of science of mind. And Linda Jones, glad you are with us today. And feel free to comment more in the chat as we go. So some of you may be familiar with the Iyanla Van Zandt book, One Day My Soul Just Opened Up, without the spectrum card sticking out of the top. One day my soul just opened up. And what Iyanla Van Zandt did in this book was also not only very clever, but very practical. And the subtitle is 40 Days and 40 Nights Towards Spiritual Strength and Personal Growth. So it's designed around a 40-day commitment, or a commitment to 40 days of spiritual practice. And every day she chooses a specific principle or practice. And she gives you a definition of that, a devotional reading about it, or an explanation about how to use it if it's a spiritual practice. And then after doing a little bit of education, then she has it for every day of the 40 days, a morning meditation, an affirmation, and then there is room for you to respond to things like, after reading today's commentary, I realized, and you journal there. So the journal prompts are included in the flow of the book. And the key phrases I want to remember and work with today are, and you journal. And then there's an affirmation again, and then there's an evening journaling series of prompts. So, for example, on the fourth day of the 40 days, on the fifth day, on day 5 of the 40 days, the theme is willingness. And right, and with willingness, there's a really one of her longer commentaries. It's about 2.25 pages. And then room to journal, more affirmations, and evening journaling prompts. So I decided that I was going to trust the universe, because I'm always encouraging you to trust the universe. And I'm going to open up to a random page, and then we're going to do some discussion and some thinking and some contemplation related to that particular spiritual principle or practice, and being guided by Iyanla Van Zandt's prompts. Now, if you've been hanging out with me on Poetry Prayer Practice, you know that every so often we actually use this time to get out of our heads and not just think about intellectually or academically spirituality, but to literally do spiritual practice or do spiritual exploration together. And that's our opportunity today. So let's see what the universe wants us to focus on. Literally, I have sometimes, I know some of you know me. And I can be picked one out in advance, but I can also do this. Let's just see what happens here. Oh, okay. That's interesting because the ribbon was there, but I wasn't looking at where the ribbon was. All right, let's do it again. Let's make sure that the ribbon didn't cause me to stop there. Right, let's just see where we stop. Okay, we are at the end or the beginning. We're right in the middle of anger. So we're going to work on anger today. It is day 23 in the 40-day process. And if you happen to have the book, it begins on page 189 in the hardback copy of the book. Day 23. When you feel angry. Working definition. The emotion we will work through today is anger. It is the response to built up frustration, a rebellion against authority, the experience of having one's sense of personal power denied or infringed upon. End quote. Okay, that I don't know about you, but it totally resonates with me, right? When do you experience anger? When do I experience anger? When I'm responding to frustration that has been built up over and over and over and over and over again, and it hasn't been resolved. I can get pretty angry about that. Or if I'm rebelling against authority or someone who thinks they have authority over me or my choices. And I have to say it that way because I really do believe and generally operate as if I am the authority on my life. And there are times when other people believe they are the authority over my life or my choices or my opportunities. And I have not given them the permission to be the authority. Now, I may ask you, or I may tell you, we're deciding to do something, and I may say, you choose, I'll go wherever you want to go, this weekend, or whatever. You have the authority to direct my life in that finite way. But there are times when other people or other leaders or other legislators who believe they have the authority to direct my life. And I could be, and I have in the past, been angry at times when that occurred. And then the third example she gives is a working definition of anger. It can be expressed or caused by the experience of having one's sense of personal power denied or infringed upon. So Yama Van Zandt has a pretty long commentary, 1, 2.5, almost 3 pages. So obviously I'm not going to read you the whole thing, but I'm going to read you some highlights. She starts off this way, and I want you to be thinking about this because together we're going to explore the prompts that she asks us about. So she writes, how do you handle anger? Do you stuff it? Do you blast somebody? Do you lie to yourself and others saying you are not angry when you actually are? Do you believe that a person of your intellectual, spiritual, or social standing is not supposed to get angry? How did you see anger acted out as a child? How did you feel when someone was angry with you? What were you willing to do to make things okay again if someone was angry with you. And then in parentheses, she digresses a little bit, but writes, don't you hate it when people fire a series of questions at you before your brain can compute them? So Iyanla Van Zant writes, I believe that anger is one of the most powerful emotions a human being can experience. Perhaps it is because the impetus for anger is passion. Passion is the driving force of life. Unfortunately, when we do not know how to process and express our anger, we also seem to have difficulty expressing our passion. So that's how she brings us into this consideration of how do you apply spiritual principle to your response when you are angry. And remember, the book is 40 Days and 40 Nights towards spiritual strength and personal growth. And so I love that she included in this chapter or in this day 23 something like anger. In that very first paragraph, I so resonated with the question, do you believe that a person of your intellectual, spiritual, or social standing is not supposed to get angry? Not because I have ever believed that, but because as a spiritual coach and as a person who teaches metaphysics, I have had so many people in classes, workshops, or coaching sessions who have been beating themselves up because they were angry, like who they really believed or had told themselves that they were too spiritual to be angry or to feel anger. And so I think this is a really important part for us as people who are spiritually grounded to remember that anger is an emotion. Anger is a natural response, a natural human response to situations that may occur, circumstances we may find ourselves in, conditions that exist. And it is how we respond to that anger or how we use that anger that demonstrates our spiritual grounding. Okay, so important point. Getting angry does not mean that you haven't done your spiritual work. In fact, if you're never angry, you are either lying to yourself or you have shut off your interaction with humanity. And so we are going to experience anger. And do we handle that anger from a spiritually grounded place? So in Iyanla Van Zant's kind of commentary on anger, she refers quite a bit to the Course of Miracles. She uses this quote at one point: you are never angry for the reason you think you are, is one of the basic premises presented in the Course of Miracles. And another place where she refers to the Course in this commentary is here. The Course teaches the worse people act, the greater is their need for healing. And so a lot of the time, our anger is actually giving us information, or it's giving us feedback. It's giving us information about what's going on internally or what we need or what we desire. And it's also giving us feedback about how we are engaging with the world, with other human beings and or the world. And so it could be feedback that, wow, I'm angry. I'm angry. I mean, honestly, right? I don't have to reach for anger. I am angry that stereotypes and violence and hatred based on race is so prevalent still in society, not just US society, but in global society. And I can bring that right home and just focus on race-based hatred and violence that I see, observe, or hear about or read about. And I could just say, in Dallas or in Texas, where I live, and have plenty of examples. But I can also look globally and see what happens with race-based determinations and race-based restrictions and race-based limitations in countries all around the globe, where race and or skin color really do create different experiences for people. And that can make me really angry. And it's feedback that I am angry that in our human species, we have not grown more. We have not gotten beyond this false narrative, and that we are using it to define people's lives or to limit their lives or to enhance people's lives if they are of the preferred race, ethnicity, or skin color. And so if I never, ever was angry about that, I would probably not be motivated to do anything to contribute to changing it. It is, my anger is the feedback that, oh, I must do something. The feedback that I don't believe this is the way that Spirit created humanity to be, to each other, with each other. And that feedback of this is happening in the world, and the feedback that my anger response is hyped up because of that, right? And so it may not be racism for you. It may be gender equity, or it may not have anything to do with a societal issue. It could be related to things in your family that, the way that people are treated within your family. And there's a pattern there that makes you angry, or people treat you personally a certain way based on your age or your gender identity or sexual orientation, or that you listen to and watch the New Thought Media network, and you have people who are close to you who you care about, and it can make you angry that they won't accept the metaphysical approach to life, or they don't accept that it works for you when they want you to ascribe to and be a representative of a different religion or a different set of spiritual beliefs that they believe. So anger is something that for each one of us, we have to look at what makes us angry. Why does it make us angry? What do we want to do about it? And how do I integrate what I believe spiritually into my response? One of the examples that Iyanla Vanzant gives in her commentary is this one. A 26-year-old who has been out of prison for 3 weeks can only take so much verbal abuse in a parking lot. He inquisitively asked the man, "Who are you talking to like that?" I said, "Move this car." Slowing his pace to a crawl, my son said, "Well, now you will wait." The man reached into his pocket. I thought he was going for a gun. He pulled out a quarter, ran 3 feet to a public telephone, picked up the receiver, looked at my son, slammed the receiver back into the cradle, turned to my son and screamed, "Where's your Christmas spirit?" It was then I knew that the lights were on and nobody was home, whereas my son had been carrying 2 wrapped pieces of art at a time. He now carried one while he whistled and looked up at the sky. Before either of them could open their mouths again, I spoke to the man. "Please forgive us. It will only be a minute more." Leaving the telephone and walking back to his car, the man responded to me, "Whose car is this?" My son was still creeping and whistling. "Mine," I said. "Well, get it the hell out of my way." It is amazing how anger can turn a very simple situation into a major dramatic production. My son shoved the picture he was carrying into my chest, knocking me back against the car. Turning and lunging toward the man in one movement, he screamed at the top of his lungs, "Don't you talk to my mother like that." Now I knew we were really headed for trouble. I was screaming my son's name, telling him to get in the car. The man, who was now trying to find his keys as my son got closer to him, was screaming repeatedly, "Move the car or I'll smash it. Move the car or I'll smash it." He was driving a Lexus. I was driving a fully insured Honda. My son was screaming at the man, "That's my mother. That's my mother." I'm going to stop there. It does work out okay. Just as she expected, the last part of this paragraph, the entire scenario took about 3 minutes. The angry exchange made it seem like an hour. What do we do when we're angry? Something will trigger us and we will go. And we had Iyanla Vanzant's son being triggered by or being in a situation where he felt this man was taking authority or standing in a place of authority that he did not want to respond to. And then when he felt his mother was threatened, he went into almost an attack mode. But you had the man on the other hand, he felt that they were blocking his path. He couldn't get out. He couldn't get where he wanted to go. And he was angry because someone was impeding his personal way of being and what he wanted to do. And it just went like this. And I love that she added at the end that all of this happened in probably 3 minutes or maybe even less, but it felt so big. And so what do you do? And Shay, I think you're right. Like, good for you for doing anger work this morning. I mean, I have to remember sometimes to watch for it and to be proactive. So you use mindfulness and compassion to soothe that place in me. I feel so oppressed and controlled. I use Christ consciousness to heal that hurt. And it works. And the practical action, the divine action became clear. When we don't take that breath, when we don't apply what we know works from a spiritual place, we end up yelling at each other. We end up behaving from the place of being offended, and we create more danger for ourselves. Now, I am one who is always trying to remember to say, there are times when you must react quickly, and sometimes that can be verbally or physically violent. While I do not recommend physical violence or verbal violence, I know that sometimes it happens as a reaction. When you are feeling physically threatened, not emotionally threatened, but in the rare instance where you are physically being harmed, sometimes anger is what saves your life, or sometimes it's the anger that provides that adrenaline rush for you to physically remove yourself from the situation. That doesn't mean, I'm not meaning to imply that you beat someone up or you pull a gun or you kill them or any of that. I'm saying that there are times when our physical safety is in danger, where anger may provide us with that adrenaline rush or that cause to take action. But those cases are really very limited in our modern and contemporary society. So we need to be able to know what are some strategies, like Shay shared, what are some strategies that work for you? So I described in every day or every chapter, Iyanla Van Zandt does ask, after reading today's chapter or commentary, what do you realize and what do you want to work with today? I'm going to share with you what she said to her son when she had the conversation with him afterwards. She recognized her son had been enraged, and so she told him to take a deep breath and then another. And then once she felt that he might be able to focus, she asked him, what happened to you? Like, what just happened? And he answered 1, 2, 3, 4 times. She just kept asking him the question, like, what really happened? What happened to you? What happened to you? Like, and he, every time he would go kind of another layer, a little bit deeper. And then she said, here are some options. Like, we don't know what's going on in his life. And she created some made up hypothetical options, like, what if this, what if this, what if this? And then she said, none of that is the issue. The issue is we were blocking him in, and he has a right to feel any way he chooses to feel about it. Our job was to move the car as quickly as possible. So that's part 1, and there is a part 2. But before I go to the part 2, isn't it interesting to always ask when we are angry, ask the question, what is my part in creating that anger? The anger I am feeling or the anger that I am experiencing from the other person? Did I make any contribution to them feeling that anger? Or what was my contribution or my assumption that resulted in me escalating to the level of anger that I am feeling. And so she gave some hypotheticals of, these are hypothetical things. What if this would happen to him? Or what if this is why he got angry so fast? Or what if? But then she goes to part two. And when she is like asking, so, here's what our job was. Our job was to get our stuff, load the car, and move because we were blocking him in. And her son says this. He's just like those prison guards. They used to talk to me like that, and I didn't like it then. I don't like it now. In there, I had to take it. Out here, I don't. He's a pig, and I treated him like a pig. Bingo, 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 bingo. How often is our anger just representing all that we have added to it because of all the times in the past we experienced that same thing or something similar? Wow. And I actually do find myself reflecting on this all the time when I am working with anger, because I know, using the example that I used a few minutes ago, I know that if I am having an anger response and it has something to do with racism, I am not just responding to this one person, Black man, being killed by a police officer today. I know I am reacting to a long, long, long pattern. So if my level of anger is escalated, then I recognize that and go back to what is my one, spiritual grounding, but two, how can I not ignore this? Ernest Holmes in Science of Mind teaches us you look a fact in the face, right? It is physically happening in the human experience and the physical dimension, but it does not have the power to define who I am and how I respond. And so what is the appropriate response if I am contributing to moving the world toward more harmony or toward the expression of unity or peace? So my anger is not just about this one thing or this one example, but my response has to still be appropriate. So Iyanla Vanzant asks her, or he says to her, she says to her son, he's your brother and he deserves to be loved. And her son says, Ma, you're taking this spiritual love stuff a little bit too far. She says, perhaps I am, but what is the alternative when you are in a parking lot screaming at a child of God? And her son takes a long, deep breath and says, I can't figure out how to make sense out of nonsense. And she closes her commentary with telling him, just keep breathing. Just keep breathing. Sooner or later, it will be clear. What do you do when you're angry? You might want to journal about these 3 prompts. Prompt number 1, the experience I had today that evoked anger was, or the experiences I had today that evoked anger were. Just capture them. No judgment, no drama. Just what were the experiences today that evoked anger? Or if you want to do this in real time, think about any experiences you had yesterday that evoked anger and just jot them down. Second prompt, I responded by, and journal how you responded to those specific things that brought forward anger in you. And the third prompt is, I forgive myself and am willing to be healed of feeling, and then journaling. What are the feelings? Because, okay, a feeling angry, but a feeling not enough, or feeling threatened, or feeling like someone was trying to take over my life, or be healed of feeling like if I don't speak up, this is going to continue. And so that's why I yelled at that person. So the first prompt is the experiences I had that evoked anger. The second prompt is I responded by, and describe what you did. And then the third prompt is I forgive myself and I'm willing to be healed from feeling a certain way. This is such a great practice. And I hope this has helped you think about, what do you do when you find yourself feeling anger? I hope that you're not one of the people who says, oh, I'm too spiritual to be angry, or, oh, I'm angry, I must not be doing my spiritual practice correctly. Because that's not true. As long as you are in your human body, you're going to have this experience of feeling angry. The question is just what Iyanla Van Zandt asks us at the beginning. When you feel angry, if you are going to operate from and respond from the deepest part of your soul, from the divinity in you, then what do you need to process? So we're going to close out today with also something that is in this chapter, and it's under the headline of Let Me Remember. And it's a poem. I was going to say it's a list of affirmations, but it's not. It's a poem. It's just some writing to inspire us, right? Poetry, prayer practice. Poetry can inspire us to operate from our deepest spiritual self. And I think that's what this does. It's not a rhymey poem, but it is a poem. So I'm so glad that you have joined me today. I hope you'll join me again next Tuesday when Reverend Victoria Bomberry will be my featured guest. And oh my goodness, just saying her name and knowing all the different directions where we might take the conversation is really exciting for me. And so it is a conversation that you don't want to miss. And if you, again, if you weren't here at the top of the hour, but you came in expecting a conversation with Reverend Cliff Rubin, we're rescheduling that. And in a few weeks, a couple of months, he'll be back with us. Excuse me. So let's close out this thinking about anger and responding to anger with this poem. Let me remember, I have a right to feel what I feel. What I am feeling is a temporary experience that cannot harm me. All things work to bring me healing. People act out of the need for healing. I can choose what I feel about any experience. Forgiveness will provide relief and release. Love will heal anything that is not an expression of love. My name is Tracy Brown. This is Poetry, Prayer, and Practice. And all for the next week until we see each other again. Remember that last line. Love will heal anything that is not an expression of love. Bye for now. Have a good week.
Thanks for watching. Join us again next week. Or watch on demand at www.ntmedia.org or youtube.com/NewThoughtMedia Network. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring. Learn more at www.ntmedia.org.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network, come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace and blessings.